members on the Senate Budget Committee. He was also part of the Party of Six talks that included the Vice President. Senator, welcome back here to America's Newsroom. Good morning to serious disagreements. How far apart can we guess the two sides are?
Well, listen, as somebody who was part of the gang of six, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, that were working on this for over 6 months, we know how many divisions there are. We had a framework. We didn't completely finish. I hope we still might be able to throw this into the mix. But both sides have got to be willing to give on core principles. They've got to be willing to say you've got to take on entitlement reform, you've got to take on tax reform. I think you've got to have a plan that's north of $4 trillion, and that clock keeps ticking. We don't have until August 2nd before the markets may start to turn on us.
Well, that is the threat that's been given out there. They say July 22nd is the day you have to do it in order to get a bill passed and signed before the 2nd of August rolls around. But this is what Republicans argue repeatedly. Washington does not have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. Do you agree?
Well, Bill, I think we've got both problems. And again, the numbers don't lie here. We are spending too much, 25% of our GDP on federal spending, all-time record high. Our revenues are roughly 15%, a 70-year low. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that delta is too large, and that any time we've been close to balance, roughly revenues and expenditures have been in that 19 to 20, 21% range. So we've got to, yes, cut back spending dramatically, and I think the president has offered entitlements, but we also have to get revenues back up to those historic levels if we're even going to get close to starting to bend the curve.
You saw the jobs number last hour, right? I mean, it's not good. I mean, America's bumping along right now, and you can feel it and see it in just about every state and city across the country. So why raise taxes now?
Well, Bill, what I think the best job creation we could do is put a long-term debt and deficit deal in place. And again, what we've been talking about is not raising taxes. It's actually back to the Reagan approach, which is lowering tax rates, but taking out some of these tax expenditures, trying to make the tax code not the 70,000-page monstrosity it is right now, but make it simpler and a little bit fairer.
Well,
I think that's a question something that most folks could agree on.
It's a question like right pocket or left pocket, depending on where you get the money. Can something like that pass, not in the Senate chamber, but in the House? Because you know that's where you have to get agreement in order for anything to go through.
If we're looking for a plan that's going to get everybody on the right or everybody on the left to come together, then we are, frankly, probably wasting our time. And this country is going to go over the cliff and we don't have the tools available that we had 2 years ago. Like them or not, federal stimulus, monetary policy, were traditional tools that have been used when we've had recessions in the past. We don't have those tools available anymore. And to kind of mess with our nation's creditworthiness with the uncertainty in Europe is just plain irresponsible. So let's be willing to have both sides give a little. Let's recognize there's not going to be a Democrat or Republican win on this, and let's do major tax reform and major entitlement reform.
We'll see if the ball moves at all on Sunday. Here is what we find in our polling, and I think this is significant. We asked Americans, do you support a balanced budget amendment? 72% say yes. But then when we ask them about program cuts, okay, there's the balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, 72%. We ask them, will you be willing to take cuts in Medicare and other entitlement programs, and 63% are against it. Then when we ask them about tax hikes, 62% were against that. And as we spoke last hour with Mike Pence on the Republican side, the question to you this hour is pretty obvious. You know, that is your debate, and that's what we need to figure out.
But Bill, I mean, if we continue to have politicians that says, I'm going to cut your taxes and I'm going to increase spending, and both sides have been guilty of that, this is where you get a $14 trillion debt. This is where you get something that we add $4 billion a day to when we don't act. I think the American people, if we tell them the truth, that we are in a real bind at this point, they know it in their guts, and it's going to take a little bit of shared sacrifice and everybody having skin in the game. It's going to require change in our tax code. It's going to require change in our entitlement programs, cutting back domestic discretionary spending, cutting back on defense spending. And I think it will be the single biggest job creator around if we can get this long-term plan, $4 trillion plus into place.
Time is ticking. Mark Warner, thank you for your time.